The sound is small, a steady, patient pour. You cup a warm, clear sip of spring, and you notice a mineral hush, a hint of green. Tonight, one modest cup of birch sap will become 3 small comforts, a mindful chilled sip, a tiny jar of reduced sap syrup, and a dried birch leaf linen whisper. Stay with me. We'll do this slowly, safely, and quietly, step by step.
Welcome back to Earthy Remedy, where nature's wisdom becomes everyday wellness. I'm Fiona Thompson. In today's episode, birch sap and quiet spring. I'll walk you through what birch sap actually is, how to tell if it's safe, and 3 small projects you can finish in an evening from a single cup. The full recipe card, safety checklist, and photos are in the show notes for this episode, so you can pause and come back. If you like these small seasonal practices, please subscribe. It helps us keep sharing quiet, useful rituals like this.
Let me start with a short story. A few springs ago, a neighbor knocked on my door with a little glass bottle, apologetic and proud at once. I took 1 tap from an old tree on my property, they said. I thought you might want to try it. I remember holding that bottle and wondering, what do you do with a cup of birch sap? Do you drink it straight? Reduce it? Stash it? Their question is exactly the small seasonal problem many of us face. A generous blob of something that feels special, but also fragile. So tonight, we're answering that tiny question with 3 modest, careful projects. Now, here's what the science tells us about birch sap. Plain and practical. Birch sap is mostly water with a light amount of natural sugar, some minerals, and trace organic compounds that give it a faint green or woody flavor. Because it's mostly water with sugars, it ferments quickly if left at room temperature. That means within a day or 2 at warm temperatures, it can become fizzy or sour. Gentle heat reduces and concentrates flavor without caramelizing if you keep temperatures low and patient. Also, and this is important, wild tapping without knowledge can hurt trees and ecosystems, and sap from unknown sources can be contaminated. So for safety and stewardship, prefer food-grade sap from reputable vendors, or accept a labeled, well-explained bottle from a trusted neighbor.
Before we get into the projects, a short practical note about who this suits tonight. If you have pollen or tree allergies that cause strong respiratory reactions, be cautious with near-face sniffing or having sachets close to your pillow. If you're pregnant, nursing, caring for infants, or have a serious immune condition, avoid tasting home-gathered sap without checking a trusted professional. Stick to small, food-grade purchases instead. And if you're not confident in how a tray was tapped or labeled, don't taste it. These are gentle precautions, not rules meant to worry you, just small steps to keep this practice kind and low risk. Quick overview of what we'll make and who each thing is for. Mindful Sip, a chilled 120 to 180 milliliter tasting, meant for someone curious to notice the season. Tiny birch syrup, a reduced, concentrated 60 to 80 milliliter jar, perfect for drizzling sparingly or stirring into sparkling water. And a leaf linen whisper, a single muslin sachet filled with dried birch leaves and an optional teaspoon of lemon balm for a subtle drawer scent or bedside nudge. We'll also talk storage, patch tests, and spoilage cues, so everything stays safe. Okay, let's gather. I'll read each ingredient slowly so you can jot things down or pause the episode. You'll find the written list in the show notes too. For one listener's single cup of projects, you'll need, for the Mindful Sip, 120 to 180 milliliters. That's about half to 3/4 of a cup of fresh birch sap, chilled. For the tiny birch syrup, start with 240 milliliters, 1 cup of sap. You'll reduce it down to about 60 to 80 milliliters. Optional, 1 to 2 tablespoons of maple syrup or sugar if you prefer a touch of sweetness. For the leaf linen whisper, 6 to 8 small birch leaves, fully dried, plus an optional teaspoon of dried lemon balm. Substitutions. If you don't have lemon balm, a teaspoon of dried lavender is okay, but keep scent sensitivity in mind. Equipment.
You'll need a small pot, a candy or instant read thermometer, a fine sieve or cheesecloth, a sterilized 2 to 3 ounce jar with a lid, a baking tray lined with parchment or a drying rack for leaves, and a small muslin sachet or a square of clean muslin in ribbon. You'll also want oven mitts and a timer. Safety reminder, keep children and pets away when you're reducing sap. Hot, thin syrups can splatter. Now we begin. Step 1. Inspect and smell the sap. Pour your sap into a clean glass and look closely. If it's cloudy, fizzy, or has a sour or off smell, discard it. If it's clear and smells fresh, think mild vegetable or faintly sweet. It should be fine to proceed. Always trust your nose. This is your first safety line.
Step 2. Make the mindful sip. If your sap passed inspection, chill 120 to 180 milliliters in the fridge until cool. When it's chilled, pour it into a small glass, hold it for a moment, and notice the aroma. Take a very small taste, a teaspoon first, just to notice mineral and green notes. If it's pleasant, sip slowly, maybe half the cup. Notice the texture, the faint sweetness, the way it sits on your tongue. If anything tastes off at any point, stop and discard. This sip is about noticing season and restraint, not overindulgence.
Step 3. Prepare to make tiny birch syrup. For this, you need the full cup, 240 milliliters, because reductions lose volume. Pour the sap into your small pot. Set your stove to medium-low so the surface warms but doesn't boil. Place your thermometer in the liquid. Our aim is a gentle, patient reduction. Keep it below a vigorous boil. Set a timer for 18 minutes, and we'll monitor between 18 and 25 minutes, depending on your stove. I'll describe sensory cues as we go.
Now, while the sap warms, a few safety notes about hot work. Use oven mitts when handling the pot. Stir gently to keep sugars from sticking. Keep the pot uncovered so you can see the surface, and stay nearby. Reductions need attention. If you have a gas stove that heats quickly, drop to low once you see the first tiny steady simmer. If the syrup starts to thicken too fast or darken into caramel, remove from heat immediately. We want a thin syrup, not caramel. Listening for texture and sound, you'll notice the surface change from still to a very gentle, regular ripple. After about 12 minutes, you'll see the volume lower and a faint sheen form. At 18 minutes, check the volume and watch for a thin syrup clinging to the back of a spoon. If it's still mostly watery, continue to 22 minutes, checking every 2 minutes. Your target concentration is a thin, glossy syrup that coats the spoon, roughly 60 to 80 milliliters left from the original cup. That should fall somewhere in the 18 to 25 minute window. Once you're near that point, remove from heat. Optional sweetness. If you like a little extra sweetness, stir in 1 to 2 tablespoons of maple syrup or sugar once the pot is off the heat and the liquid has cooled a touch. Stir until dissolved. I suggest tasting a tiny dab on the tip of a spoon. Remember, this syrup will be used sparingly. Step 4. Cool and jar the syrup. Strain the warm syrup through a fine sieve or cheesecloth into a sterilized 2 to 3 ounce jar to remove any particulate. Let it cool at room temperature until it's just warm, then seal the jar and refrigerate. Label the jar with the date. Store in the fridge. Follow storage guidance I'll cover in a moment. If you ever notice cloudiness or fizz in the jar, discard it. That indicates fermentation. Step 5. Make the leaf linen whisper. If you have fresh birch leaves, wash them gently and pat dry. Drying options. Air dry on a rack for several days in a ventilated, shaded spot, or use a very low oven between 50 and 60 degrees Celsius. That's 120 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit for a few hours. Check every 30 minutes if using an oven. The leaves should become crisp and papery, not browned. Once fully dry, combine 6 to 8 leaves with an optional teaspoon of dried lemon balm or a tiny pinch of lavender and place them into a small muslin sachet. Tie the sachet and label it. Do a fabric patch test. press the sachet against a small area of washed fabric or skin for 24 hours to check for sensitivity before placing directly in a pillow or very near the face. A short pause here. Breathe. If you're following along live, this is a good place to set your timer while the syrup reduces and to check your drying leaves. I'll wait a beat. And if you paused the episode, pick up when you're ready. Storage and serving tips. Raw sap is perishable. Refrigerate any raw sap within 2 hours and use it within 24 hours. If you reduced sap into syrup, keep that refrigerated and use within 10 to 14 days. Always label with the date. If you want to make a small batch ahead, store refrigerated and warm a spoonful gently into sparkling water or drizzle on porridge. A tiny spoon of syrup in sparkling water highlights its delicate mineral notes. A little on yogurt adds a woodland twist. Don't freeze raw sap unless you plan to cook or reduce it after thawing. Freezing changes texture. Now, safety, cautions, and clear discard cues. First, inspection checklist before you taste or reduce. If the sap is cloudy, has bubbles or fizz, smells sour or yeasty, or any visible film, discard immediately. Second, for the linen sachet, perform a fabric patch and a 24-hour skin patch if you plan to keep it very near skin or face. Third, avoid internal use of home-gathered sap if you are pregnant or feeding infants without checking with a qualified clinician. Fourth, when reducing, keep heat low. Use a thermometer if you have one, and use oven mitts when handling hot pots. Finally, if anything in your jar becomes cloudy, bubbly, or smells off during storage, discard it. These are straightforward checks to keep the ritual gentle and safe. If you're sensitive to fragrances or plant aromas, keep your sachet sealed in a jar and open it briefly for scent, rather than keeping it directly on a bedside pillow. This allows you to enjoy the green, bark-leaning hush without risking respiratory irritation. Reflection and encouragement. Cradle your chilled cup or the tiny jar in your hands. Notice the temperature, the scent rising, the way a small ritual signals an intention to steward something seasonal. This isn't about perfection. It's about attention and restraint. Try one of these, the sip, the syrup, or the linen whisper, this week. Do it slowly. Notice how a small, careful practice can shift a day. A few final notes. The full recipe, step-by-step photos, and a printable safety checklist are in the show notes. If you made something from today's episode, I'd love to hear about it. Share a voice note or a photo on our social channels. And if you find this kind of small, seasonal practice nourishing, please subscribe to Earthy Remedy so these episodes find their way into your quiet evenings. Listen to your body. Trust the earth. Feel the difference. Thank you for sharing this quiet spring with me. Until next time, be kind to your hands, keep your timers close, and enjoy the small taste of season.